What's going on, everybody? Bryan Fonseca here, checking in on behalf of the Action Network, and we have a big card this week because it is the first time Premier Boxing Champions will be on Amazon Prime, and we have a big main event to showcase for that, and an interesting route as to how we got there. But first, we have Tim Tszyu, who is going to be in the main event against Sebastian Fundora. This wasn't always going to be the case. Allow me to explain. Tim Tszyu, 24-0, 17 knockouts, is the reigning and defending WBO super welterweight champion of the world. That is 154 pounds. He's going to be facing Sebastian Fundora, who is 21-1. That is one loss and one draw, with 13 wins by knockout. And Sebastian Fundora, if you haven't seen him before, 6'6" with an 80-inch reach. Doesn't really use all of it. We'll get to that later. Originally, this was supposed to be Keith Thurman, and to not bore you with all the details, he essentially got injured, and somehow this becomes a fight for the WBO title and the vacant WBC title. So the winner of this bout will be a unified champion because Sebastian Fundora was already on the card. He gets promoted here, even though he lost his last fight to Brian Mendoza by knockout, one of the best knockouts you'll see in all of 2023, and that was in April. So almost a full year ago, Sebastian Fundora was knocked out of a fight that he was winning beforehand, but the reason he got knocked out was because at 6'6", with an 80-inch reach, he doesn't really use his length and reach advantages. He insists on fighting like he's a light flyweight, fighting on the inside and deciding to overwhelm you with his size on the inside instead of using his range, using his jab, and keeping his opponents at a safe distance. Tim Tszyu, if Fundora fights that way, is going to pick him apart. He's about 5'8". He doesn't have the same reach advantage. He's going to be at a significant height and reach disadvantage, but it's probably not going to matter. He did pick apart Tony Harrison, who had a distinct height and reach advantage, but Tim Tszyu was able to get inside and find him for the knockout, which is what I think is going to happen here. Tim Tszyu is just a better all-around fighter, actually executes a game plan, has knockouts in 2 of his last 3 fights, and Sebastian Fundora not only was knocked out by Brian Mendoza in round 7 of that fight, but was also dropped by Erickson Lubin in a previous bout in round 7. So we're going to look at Tim Tszyu knockout or TKO between rounds 5 through 8. And I found that one prominent book at plus 150. So we like that very much there on behalf of Tim Tszyu winning this fight. The co-main event is a fun one. We have Rolly Romero defending his WBA super lightweight championship. Cruz, who's moving up from lightweight. Both Cruz and Rolly Romero share a common opponent in Gervonta Tank Davis, who beat both of these guys. He knocked out Rolly Romero in the middle rounds, despite Rolly Romero having some success early on. And then with Cruz pushed the fight to a narrow decision, still lost, but it was close, although people would say, and Gervonta Davis himself would say, that he was injured in that fight. He did have a broken hand, reportedly. Now, as it pertains to this fight, Cruz is the challenger, and he's also the favorite. And the reason why is because we just saw Rolly Romero several months ago probably get the worst decision in boxing that year. Ismael Romero, who is 40 years old plus, was able to knock down Rolly Romero, push him, and was stopped despite looking perfectly fine. And Tony Weeks just stepped in there and gave us the worst stoppage of the year of 2023, and maybe the worst in several different years, because it didn't look like a fight that Rolly Romero had in hand quite yet, though he did have some moments. So coming off one of his worst performances in recent time, and while he is clearly skilled and good enough to win this fight and gave Gervonta Davis problems before getting stopped, that is the concern with betting on Rolly Romero. Can he use his height and reach advantages, because he does have them here, use his height and reach advantages to sort of pick apart Cruz from the outside and really maintain that distance? Can he keep his jab in Cruz's face? Cruz is a little bit more of a peekaboo style, get those angles, punch Rolly Romero on the inside, hurt him to the body in particular, and really close the gap in that way, and it's going to be a pressure-filled performance. Can Rolly Romero's chin sustain 12 rounds of that, or can he put Cruz away, who's never been stopped before that? I ended up going back and forth on this decision. My lean, Rolly Romero loses this fight by knockout or technical knockout against Cruz, minus 105. I was very worried after the Ismael Barroso performance, and I'm going to hold that against Rolly Romero in this respect. I do think Rolly Romero could win this fight, and if you do think that that's going to be the case, I suggest betting him on the money line because he actually could stop Cruz, but Cruz never been stopped before. The decision's a tough one because is this fight going to go on that long? But as we saw with Cruz's last performance against Gio Cabrera, he struggles against guys who are bigger, who are faster, and ultimately who won't engage very much because he has trouble cutting off the ring and closing the gap, though he's going to try to do that in this bout. So we're going with Tim Tszyu by knockout or technical knockout, rounds 5 through 8 at plus 150, and we are going with Cruz. That's more of a lean at minus 105 to get the stoppage. That's all we have for today. Make sure that if you watch this video, check out our other picks video for this week, because on ESPN the night before the PBC on Amazon card, you have Oscar Valdez facing Liam Wilson and Sinisa Estrada facing Yokasta Valle, which I think is a sneaky fight of the year contender. Make sure you check those out and enjoy the fights. Take care.